Throughout history, young people have been the catalysts of profound social change. From the sit-ins in the civil rights movement, to the Stonewall riots that kickstarted the fight for LGBTQ equality, to the student-led protests against the Vietnam War. Young people's passion, energy, and determination have ignited movements that have transformed society. But when it comes to the most fundamental act of civic engagement, voting, young people remain disengaged. In the 2022 midterm elections, young people turned out at a rate of just a quarter. This severe underrepresentation at the polls has serious real-world consequences. It's the result of a decades-long process of youth voter disempowerment, what we refer to as the crisis of youth voter efficacy. Voter efficacy is the idea of how much an individual believes that their vote can make an impact on the issues they care about most. When young people have low voter efficacy, which can happen quite often, they are less likely to turn out to vote. As a result, politicians will push their ideas to the side in favor of other generations and groups that are more likely to turn out, like older voters. In 2022, there were 51 million eligible voters aged 18 to 29. But out of these, just 14 million, 27%, actually turned out to vote. On the other hand, a similar 57 million voters were eligible age 65 or older. But the difference is 37 million, or 65%, actually turned out. The truth is, young voters are wasting their political potential. It's not that they're incredibly outnumbered. Rather, they aren't cashing in their IOUs for political change. So what can we do to bridge this gap between younger and older voters when it comes to turnout? Well, it begins when we acknowledge that every young person has a unique path to political awareness. For me, it wasn't one key moment that brought me from disengagement to engagement. Rather, it was a gradual process where I became more aware of the impact that decisions politicians made had on my life and the lives of those I cared about. I began to become more involved in my community, join clubs within my school related to politics, and I began to reach out to local representatives and have in-depth conversations where I shared my perspective. The truth is, many young people have a passion for politics, social change, and advocacy, just like me. But this is not always the narrative that we hear. In fact, many older voters will claim that young people are actually apathetic towards politics and don't have an interest at all. This is simply not true. A Pew Research study found that younger people were more likely than any other age group to participate in a strike, protest, or rally, as well as express support for a campaign or cause on social media within the last year. Young people have a true interest in politics, but the issue is they're tired. Tired of not seeing their ideas materialize in politics. Tired of candidates who don't necessarily represent their ideas, their lived experiences, often due to a generational disconnect. But what if younger voters turned out in larger numbers? What if every young person here went home, went and registered to vote, and brought their friends with them? What if we began to see social media campaigns, voter registration drives, and a national movement to encourage young people to exercise the right to vote? What if the youth turnout resulted in a 50% increase up to 41%? Well, we would see a massive change on the political landscape. Immediately, this would put younger voters aged 18 to 29 nearly on par with middle-aged voters. Immediately, politicians would have reason to listen to the ideas of younger voters. Beyond this, they would have reason to fight for the youth vote because of just how important it would become. We have the power to make this dream a reality. By removing the undue barriers that prevent young people from expressing their civic duty, such as ID requirements that disproportionately affect student, low-income, and minority voters, as well as inconvenient polling locations that force people to travel up to 3 hours just to cast a ballot. We can encourage young people to cast their vote and exercise the full power of the youth vote. But beyond removing barriers, we must empower young people. By instituting Election Day as a federally recognized holiday, expanding access to early and mail-in voting, and creating automatic voter registration once young people turn 18, we can provide the flexibility needed for young people to fit voting into their busy schedules, where they may be taking on an extra job to pay off student loan debts or support their futures, in combination with university, other jobs, or a skilled trade. So let's do it. Let's create the future that we want to see. Let's have every young voter here register to vote at your local polling location, DMV, or online at a place like vote.org. Let's have every older voter understand your place in this too. You have a unique political standing that provides you with the opportunity to make reforms that protect voting rights, not just for young people, but for all Americans. So let's channel our collective power into the polling booth together. Our vote is our power, and the time to exercise it is now. Are you ready to be that spark? Thank you.